Today we're going to talk about lesson 4-5, solving ax plus b is less than cx plus d. Now you could have a greater than or equal to, a greater than sign, whatever. They're just showing that you could have an inequality here instead of an equal sign. An inequality of the form ax plus b is less than cx plus d can be solved by applying the same operations to both sides as in solving the equation ax plus b equals cx plus d. So what they're saying is we're still putting our x's together and putting our regular numbers together. It's no different. The only thing you have to worry about, remember with inequalities, if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to flip the sign. Okay? So make sure you remember that. So that's what the top paragraph says. And down below it says, consider the following situation. Years ago, the Mosley family planted a 12-foot beech tree and a 4-foot maple tree. Beech trees grow at a rate of about 1/2 foot per year. Maple trees grow at about 1 foot per year. So 2 years after planting, the height of the beech tree is 12 plus 0.5 t, because it started at 12 and then it grew a 1/2 foot each year. And the height of the maple tree is, it started at 4 and it grew 1 foot per year. Okay, so those are two equations that this is representing the beech tree, this is representing the maple tree. Okay? So example 1 says, Mrs. Mosley looked at an old photograph of the two trees. In it, the beech tree was taller than the maple tree. She wondered when the photo was taken. Well, if the beech tree is taller than the maple tree, we know that in this picture, the beech tree has to be greater than the maple tree because its height is taller, right? Pretty simple. So let's put in our two equations. 12 plus 0.5 t has to be greater than 4 plus t. Okay? And it will give her a roundabout where or when that picture was taken. So I got to put my t's together. I got to put my regular numbers together. So the first thing I'm going to do, and it doesn't matter, I'm just going to subtract 4. Remember, I just have to do it to the 12 because I just want to put my regular numbers together. So my 4's are gone here, leaves me with 8 plus 0.5 t is greater than, and all I'm left with is 1t. Now I'm going to put my t's together. So the inverse of adding 0.5 t is subtracting 0.5 t. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. 1t minus 0.5 t is just 0.5 t. Notice how I'm keeping my inequality sign coming. And I'm left with, on the left-hand side, 8. I divide by 0.5. I divide by 0.5. How many times will 0.5 go into 8? Well, you should tell me 16. So what's that telling me is that 16 years probably, then my maple tree starts to get bigger than my beech tree. Okay? So time has to be less than 16 years because that picture had to be taken 16 years or less. Otherwise, after 16 years, that maple tree is going to start getting bigger than its beech tree. Okay? Example 2, solve this. Okay? 7 minus 11x is greater than or equal to 4x plus 12. Once again, x is to the same side, regular numbers to the other side. So since this is a negative 11x, I just like to move it over to the right because I'll make it positive then. So it makes it easier. So the inverse of subtracting 11x is adding 11x. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. Remember, you can only do it to the x's. So it leaves me with 7 is greater than or equal to 11x plus 4x is 15x. And then I still have my plus 12. But we all know we have to move the 12 over to the left. So the inverse of adding 12, subtracting 12. 12's are gone, leaves me with 15x is greater than or equal to 7 minus 12 is a negative 5. The inverse of multiplying by 15 is dividing by 15. So we divided by a positive number, so the sign stays the same. And a negative 5 divided by 15 is a negative 1/3. You can check that out on your calculator if you don't believe me. Haha. So, if you remember graphing it on an inequality line, my point of interest is a negative 1/3. Closed circle, because I have the equal sign. And you read from your variables. So, x is less than or equal to a negative 1/3. So, less than or equal to is to the left. Okay? Not too shabby. Last example. Example 3 says, 5 times a number is less than 3 times the same number. So I want to show you what sticks out to me. Okay? Is less than. And I'm going to make this little box around it. Is less than is wording for an inequality sign. What's that inequality sign? Well, is less than means the arrow points to the left. Is less than. Okay, so this, whatever this is less than this. Well, let's find this and this. What's 5 times a number look like? Well, it's 5 times some number. But what number are we talking about? We don't know. We're going to call that number x. Okay, so there's my left side. Remember, since this is an inequality, it separates my left side from my right side, right? So here's my right side. 3 times the same number. Why do you say 3 times the same number? Well, 3. And then the same number as this number over here. Well, what was this number? Well, this number is x. So we say 3x over here. Now it says find the number. Okay? So we have to get our x's together. And I'm just going to erase this line here. Okay? So the inverse of adding 3x is subtracting 3x. Okay? 3x minus 3x gives you 0. It doesn't give you a blank spot. It gives you 0. 5x minus 3x gives me 2x. The inverse of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. X is going to be less than 0 divided by 2 is 0. So if I'm going to make that inequality, okay, symbol, my point of interest is 0. I have an open circle at 0. And it says all numbers that are less than 0. So what this is saying is 5 times a number is less than 3 times a number. When does this happen? Okay. Well, it happens in the negative numbers. So let's check that out. If I put in a negative 5 for x, 5 times a negative 5, is that less than 3 times a negative 5? Well, is a negative 25 less than a negative 15? Yes, That totally makes sense. Okay? So every single number that is less than 0, this is going to work for. That's all I have for you today. Please enjoy. We'll see you tomorrow.